as we know, development hell is a very real thing when it comes to Disney Star Wars. And like, I wouldn't be surprised that 2 years from now we hear that Patty Jenkins leaves this film. I would be almost shocked if we don't get that headline.
1, 2, 3, 4.
In this podcast, you will be here. Knights of Vader, includes, but is not limited to, talk of Star Wars, not Reagan's. We can't truly prepare for the jump that follows this song, but hey, we gave it a try. So here's the Knights of Vader. Crystal Fox reports they are divided. Prequel, sequel, canon, love they fighted. I know that we are just musicians tired, and their time is up. So here's the Knights of Vader.
Impressive. Most impressive.
A big thank you to An Insperiority Complex for providing our theme song. It is September 20th, 2022, the eve of Calrissian Endor. I am Zach Weber, and joining me is Canadian collector Chris Porteous.
Hey, there's so much Star Wars stuff going on, and I'm here for it.
Is there though? Is there really? Are you aware of something? Did Disney offer you a deal? Did they give you a movie deal?
No, the official media is like neither here nor there, but like, and just in my life and my social circle, there's so much Star Wars stuff going on. It's great.
It was great today, Chris. I found an Antok Merrick Black Series figure at 50% off. I only waited a year for that to be pre-order to be fulfilled though, but I found it for 50% off.
Nice. Him and
stares into the void.
Him and Galen Urso have been sitting at Toys R Us for a year.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's amazing. You had to wait a year for yours to go to clearance. Mine went immediately to clearance after sitting on a cargo container off the coast of California for 18 months.
Antok Merrick has a Black Series figure is like so funny to me because it's just like, here's like Space Ned Flanders, who is literally only known for his vehicle, and like you'll never get his vehicle. So here's what he looks like outside of it with his helmet on.
That, like I said, that I still have. Oh God, I'm going to do I'm going to do a Zenger right now in real time. It's literally within arm's reach. The Blue Leader X-Wing. I like this thing. They even made the droid as a TVC figure.
Yeah, no, I got it too. It's pretty cool, but like, you know, it's just a repaint. But I'm not. Wouldn't get no. I'm saying I wouldn't get the Black Series one. That is just funny to me.
It's already being marked down again on clearance. I saw a post from Yakface. I think it's like $750 now. So like I was just at Target this afternoon, and if it goes to $750, I'll probably pick the Black Series up because it's a neat fit. Like, that's when we're like, even though I think the Hasbro thing of like designing your own head is like goofy, if I can put it on that body, I'd be like, okay, like better than just a generic Luke X-Wing body.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know, like the Luke X-Wing Black Series, like that they used for like Cowboy Hat Man, like I don't know, it just doesn't look right on any other head than Mark Hamill, in my opinion. I don't know.
As most likely it was sculpted to only work in that particular context yet. Hey, look at it this way. You have a choice between Luke X-Wing jumpsuit or 2013 Boba Fett mold. Like, those are your options, Chris. You get one or the other. They only have 2 molds left.
You know what? 2000, like, as many times as they've made that thing, 2013 Boba Fett's pretty good. Like, you know, if you're going to have like 10 Black Series figures, that's in there.
That's, like I said, I was going back and looking at that War of the Bounty Hunters Boba Fett figure, and I'm just like, dude, did you look at the Hot Toys for that? Like, that is a cool figure.
Yeah, it is, and like, it's one of the few. Apparently, it's one of the like very few Star Wars Hot Toys that have actually like sold out in like recent times, where you like actually can't buy it anymore. But I guess it was like, was it a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive or something?
I think it's like a Toy Fair exclusive. Like, it has that, like, I don't know how that works, but it has, some level of exclusivity surrounding it.
Right.
And it has
I haven't got like like they put out like a 40th anniversary Empire Strikes Back Boba Fett, like in the regular like colors, and like even that one came with like a bunch of cool stuff, like an alternate helmet that had like the eyes painted on from like his first parade appearance and stuff. Like, that is a deep cut that most filthy casual Star Wars fans do not know why there's eyes painted on that helmet, and they put it in a Hot Toys. That's cool. I still didn't get that. I just still didn't get that. I don't have any Hot Toys as of yet, personally.
It should be stated that I pre-ordered my Kenobi Darth Vader with the damaged helmet because I couldn't resist. I'm not gonna get it until it'll come out. Oh god, it'll be released sooner than. Oh god. Insert joke about next Star Wars movie here. Like that figure is slated for release March 2024. Yet it will somehow be released years before the next Star Wars movie.
Yeah, well, the only ones you get like immediately after they're announced from Hot Toys are like those like weird repaints, like that Black Boba Fett, and I think they were doing like a chrome clone trooper or something recently that just looks terrible to me, and like I don't know what's wrong with people who'd buy something like that, because it's like that's like not what it looks like in the movie. I don't know if you guys know that, but like it looks pretty bad. It's not what it looks like in the movie.
They do that with other characters. I know for like Batman v Superman, they did a chrome like armored Batman. I think it's a way for people who like have fear of missing out syndrome, where it's like, oh, I couldn't get the regular version, so like I'll settle for this. It's the notion of something's better than nothing.
Yeah, it's not actually though. You don't play yourself. Just buy the real one on eBay if you want it to look like a clone trooper.
Yes. Alrighty, Chris, but we are not here to talk about Star Wars collecting. We're not here to talk about Calrissian Endor debuting roughly in 6 hours. We are here to talk about all the D23 announcements. I don't know about you, but I am so excited to go to Galaxy's Edge and be able to take awkward selfies with the Mandalorian and Big Whiskey.
Yeah, well, let's see. How old is the Mandalorian in between episodes 8 and 9?
What was that, 23 approximately? He'd be 23 years older than when we last saw him in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, I don't know quick math, but if he's like 5 during the Clone Wars, he's got to be like 60 by then, right? Because Luke's not even like born yet during the Clone Wars.
Pretty much like that. But again, does he have Bo-Katan syndrome? That's the real question.
Well, you don't. That's the beauty of it. You never have to know because he's gone back to wearing his helmet all the time. Which also, the interesting thing about this, because they are playing fast and loose with their park is in canon, because this basically tells you if the Mandalorian appears in Galaxy's Edge, it tells you that he continues caring for Big Whiskey for 25 years, and he doesn't upgrade his armor ever again. And he doesn't overcome his religious fanaticism that makes he's sure he has to wear his helmet all the time. So like he really makes no character progression, and Big Whiskey never moves on to bigger and brighter things in the rest of the Mandalorian series.
But that's the thing about Galaxy's Edge. Like I'm just waiting for the inevitable. Like it's not going to happen anytime soon. Like I think that's one thing that definitely will happen after the next Star Wars movie. Is that they're going to slowly just make that into, it's just a general time period. Like
I think they did because there was like somebody from the story group. I don't know if it was Pablo Hidalgo or whoever, but they there was like the comment about the Mandalorian showing up at Galaxy's Edge was something so nebulous. It was like, at some point, the Mandalorian and Grogu traveled to Galaxy's Edge. Like there was literally like the words "at some point" or something like that in there, implying that it was just like, yeah, we don't know when this happened.
Well, that's the thing. Is like I don't know, because Disney theme park stuff is so slow moving. There's no incentive for them to build any new Star Wars stuff in any of the parks that already have it. I think when they inevitably do something new Star Wars related, God, we're talking probably at least 10, 15 years, the absolute earliest. I'm basing this 100% off my understanding of Florida, not off Disneyland, is that it's going to be taking out Star Tours and the Muppets and just expanding it. And they're going to sit there and make that, like, I don't know, Tatooineville or something. Like, clearly nothing resonated from Kenobi, like on a normie level. And I can't imagine anything from Mandor will resonate based on just Tony Gilroy being like, screw your fan service. Like I can't imagine anything in this is going to be like really be that barn burner that they're looking for.
I love that. Listen, like, I don't like, maybe we're sort of we're sort of separate opinions on this whole Tony Gilroy thing, because like the disgusting amount of like attempting to like co-opt my nostalgia and fan service that was in this Kenobi behind the scenes thing on Disney Plus was just like, Zach, I know you're not going to watch it and you can't bring yourself to watch it, but I can't stress enough. They put all the actors and Deborah Chow in the volume and made them watch Star Wars movies and then just filmed their faces while they were like smiling watching Star Wars movies. That is like 20% of the B-roll in this thing. It's like, could you guys show me some behind the scenes Kenobi stuff instead of like watching Hayden Christensen smile while watching A New Hope? Like, what is this? This is so bizarre.
It's almost like an experimental film in that regard. Like, there's like, hey, if that's what it was for like 55 minutes straight is just like a sizzle reel of reactions to them watching Star Wars, there's something weirdly avant-garde about that. Like coming from
It's
like
not
a
good.
major. I'm not saying no, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that the idea of just doing that, solely that, and just selling that as behind the scenes material, there's something weirdly avant-garde about that. If that's just what it was.
Well, there is behind the scenes material in it, but there's just not like, it should be mostly that, because like there's interviews, of course, but then there's like literally it's like they Hayden watching the movies by himself, Ewan watching the movies by himself, Hayden and Ewan watching the movies together, Deborah Chow watching the movies, Deborah Chow dramatically walking through Tatooine in the volume, just like thinking to herself as if there's not a man with a Steadicam following her. Like, it's just weird. And it's like, they're just all talking about how happy they are to be there, how much they love Star Wars. It's like, yo, can you guys like focus on making a show that's worth watching, please? Like, for God's sake.
Real sets, practical effects. Isn't it amazing how that rhetoric went out the window? Think about it, that was only 7 years ago, and they couldn't have punted that rhetoric out of the park fast enough. Like, we've gone from a part where like
JJ's not part of the mix anymore. He's persona non grata because he's he's talking about how we should have had a plan. That you shouldn't have said that, JJ. Now you're not part of the team anymore.
He's been boosted out of Warner Brothers too. Like, good Lord, the one thing he had left, Constantine, now is back in the Keanu Reeves cinematic universe. I talk about a guy that was on top of the world a few years ago, and he's just, oh God, he's like Darth Maul, like on the trash planet, just like with a bunch of like spider legs, just sitting there, like wandering around aimlessly, like yelling about like Kenobi and Luke Skywalker and Harrison Ford.
I mean, I don't know. I equate that more to Chris Terrio. JJ will land on his eight legs.
Well, JJ has more money than we would ever never know what to do with. You know, Chris Terrio's the one that goes out there and he's like just like yelling gibberish on the corner. Like, all he's missing is like a sandwich board sign that says something like, "This is how Palpatine returned." Like, I can imagine Chris Terrio seeing the memes about like Palpatine and the Rise of Skywalker and just like throwing his shoe at the monitor. Like, I could see him doing that.
No, specifically the meme saying, if anyone ever told you couldn't be a screenwriter, like, this was approved. Somehow Palpatine returned.
I love it. I love it so much.
But yeah, anybody, like, I'm sorry, like, I don't know, like, hopefully the last 5 listeners don't stop listening because I say this, but like, that Kenobi behind the scenes thing was terrible. And if you enjoyed any of it except for the Palpatine behind the scenes thing where he was like laughing about getting his lines wrong and like you could see Deborah Chow remotely directing him from home, that's the only part of it you were allowed to enjoy. Otherwise you're messing up.
You're part of the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that, like, okay, peek behind the curtain, because part of the oh God, what would you call it? Antithesis news from this week is that like Rogue Squadron, for all intents and purposes, has been canceled as a movie. And so in preparation for this recording, I went back and listened to our December 2020 episode on The Mandalorian chapter 15. And we go back and forth because I guess they just announced a lot of the stuff that's coming to fruition now, whether it be Calrissian Endor, Kenobi, The Bad Batch, Visions, the other half a dozen things that we still 2 years later have no idea what any of it's about. And at one point, like when we're talking about Kenobi, and like, I guess part of the pitch was Kathleen Kennedy's line of, quote, rematch of the century. And it's you, Zenger, and I just like burying our heads in our hands, being like, this is so misguided. And then like, we had all these predictions and yet none of it happened. Like, I don't mean that like as in like an optimistic thing, like, oh, all these fatalist like, oh God, predictions didn't come to pass. It's just that like we had all these like lofty ambitions of them just being like, oh God, like stepping in it. And instead they did nothing. They just stood still. And like at one point we were talking about like, oh, well, how would like Vader's like, again, if Vader and Obi-Wan cross paths, we were like, how does that come to an end where Vader literally just is like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. And now watching the show, it's hysterical to think in retrospect that why Vader just stops going after Kenobi is because Palpatine says, haven't you had your fill of this by now? Like there's such a weird...
Yeah, like we were talking about.
He's like, knock it off.
You didn't. Yeah, you did. You were. I think you were missed our chapter 6 review, but like he's basically like, we're trying to run an empire here. Like, can't you like do something that's actually helps functionally run this place? Like, you're spending a lot of time on this project that hasn't really turned out to do anything. But on the subject, okay, a couple things from what you said there though. There is a shot in the Obi-Wan behind the scenes on Disney Plus that like really like I want to like edit an Instagram clip of this shot and then in quotes at the top, rematch of the century, because like it literally shows like Vader and Kenobi fighting on like a 2 meters squared like patch on the volume. And it's just like comparing the logistics of this battle. Like they're literally standing in like a sandbox, like swinging at each other. And like, you got the volume of the like spiky blue planet all around them, but like they're barely moving. Right. And it's like comparing that to like the like action set pieces of episode 3. It's just like, even the duel in the Empire Strikes Back between Vader and Luke had more interesting things going on in terms of like the location being part of the choreography. Like they're literally just standing on a patch of sand, like swinging at baseball bats at each other. It's really horrifying that this was called the rematch of the century. It's crazy.
Because they, again, not to relitigate Kenobi, but it's part of that is the COVID thing where it's like, okay, they're afraid to put more than like 6 people in a room together, but they were also doing this pre-COVID with the Mandalorian, the stupid, the Void. Like that's the thing where it's like, this is their equivalent of George Lucas in green screen during Attack of the Clones. They're just drunk on the idea that they can sit there, save tens of millions of dollars. And whereas obviously when Lucas was doing all this in like 2000, 2001, sure, cost cutting was part of it, but I think there was at least some level of creative aspirations at play. Creativity is not allowed at Lucasfilm. Like it's come down to a point where it's just like rinse, lather, repeat for everything.
But just like the idea of like something as simple as like, I'm talking about just like basic stuff where the environment like plays into a duel. Like, like when they're Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting inside the mining building on Mustafar, and they accidentally cut the computer, which like destroys the shields over the bridge that then breaks off into the lava. Like that's too complex of an idea for a duel in the Disney Plus era. The idea that like they damage something that then plays, like it's literally the tiniest 2-step setup for an action set piece. Like that stuff like that is not really happening anymore. It's crazy. But because you can't tell where you are on that planet because it has no details whatsoever. It's just like rocks. You know what I mean? There's no environment. It's like one plain environment in that whole like planet where they have their duel in Kenobi. But yeah, there's that, and there was, and one other thing I wanted to point out about that was like about when you were talking about Palpatine at the end of Kenobi. It's like the behind the scenes showed that it was a practical makeup on Palpatine, which I would have never believed unless I saw this behind the scenes footage, because it looks terrible on the show. But in the behind the scenes footage, it looks amazing. He looks just like he does in Return of the Jedi. It's crazy.
Well, because it wasn't rendered properly. Like that's one where like we hear all the stories about like the Marvel visual effects people. And that's the thing. Like you wish you could blame the visual effects artists. Yeah, I think the people that are giving them the input have no idea what they're doing. And it's combined with just an unreasonable timetable to not even refine these half-baked ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it was lit kind of weirdly, and like they could have done it with a deep fake. Maybe it would have looked better. I have no idea. But the behind the scenes stuff of Ian McDiarmid on set looked awesome. It's a shame they didn't film more. They probably did film some extra stuff, but it may never see the light of day, just like Rogue Squadron.
All right, Chris. Like in the worst kept, fait accompli in the history of Star Wars. Are you surprised that this is not happening? Like there should be no Star Wars fan that's like, oh my God, this isn't happening. Like it was blatantly obvious to me 2 years ago.
I wasn't really excited for it because it's just another example, much like Tales of the Jedi, which I'm sure we'll get to in a bit, but it's just like, it's the current guard at Lucasfilm co-opting a sub-franchise name that means something else to all of us, and they're just saying, well, it's just a title to us, and we're going to make it about something completely different. Rogue Squadron is a series of games with characters, and this is going to have nothing. If had this been made, it would have had nothing to do with that. It would have been, they're referencing a name from Empire Strikes Back for a squadron. It would have had nothing to do with what I think of as Rogue Squadron, and it would have been, it would have been ham-fisted and weird, is my guess. And I'm kind of glad it's not coming out. It's kind of like, like Tales of the Jedi. It's like, we basically still have Clone Wars going on. The Bad Batch is really just Clone Wars, like season 10. So this is like more, and it's like shorts in the Clone Wars animation style, and it's just like, it's so saddening when it's like Tales of the Jedi is actually a cool, interesting thing in its previous incarnation. So it's just like a shame that it's just like they're just watering down what used to be a cool thing in both these cases. And I'm kind of glad.
I will say about Tales of the Jedi is that I have seen some conversation out there, because it's like, why are we getting more Ahsoka stories? Like, again, why? Like, the Dooku stuff seems a little interesting because it seems like there's some meat on the bone there. But the thing is, what I was reading online is that this might be their foot in the door for going into more obscure characters. Like, one thing I think of Star Wars Explained did a video, like, oh, wouldn't it be great to see Tar Vizsla as like the first Mandalorian Jedi, like in Tales of the Jedi, like exploring really kind of just out there characters, like something like that, where it's like, okay, like obviously you need to have the grounding so it hooks the normies, which is, again, all this, again, every streaming show is legit just a poster outside a movie theater. It's there to try to reel you in. It's not there to be, if it turns out to be a fulfilling piece of storytelling, great, but that's not its intent on the corporate level. That's the thing. Like, I look at the Tales of the Jedi is probably the thing out of the next 3 Star Wars projects that are coming down the line that I am genuinely excited for. Just because the Dooku stuff seems interesting. I like the idea that we're going to see that Dooku, Qui-Gon, Master Apprentice relationship that's been hinted at now for 20 years. Yaddle, that alone should sell most of us. Just the idea of Yaddle finally getting something to do outside of sitting in a chair. And it seems interesting. Like, again, I have no problem with them going back to the well of Clone Wars style animation. I think there's, as a very specific medium, as it being Lucasfilm's version of like Pixar aesthetic, I have no problem with it. Again, I don't care about Visions like that. Funny, 2 years ago we talked about that, and I'm like, I don't care. You already made perfect anime Star Wars. It was called Clone Wars. You can't reinvent the wheel. Tales of the Jedi at least seems interesting. Not the Ahsoka stuff. I don't care about the Ahsoka stuff. Again, they've kind of just enough of that character. That character is fun, but she is not an intellectually deep character. But whereas Dooku and Qui-Gon, oh God, can you only imagine what that relationship is like? So I'm like, perfect. Give us more of that. And then seeing all the weird stuff with like Ahsoka, and she's training with all the clone troopers, and it's meant to, in the shots, mirror what happens in the final arc of the Clone Wars. And then you have these weird shots of like Obi-Wan with his like Attack of the Clones hairstyle, which makes literally no sense. It's canon breaking because the Clone Wars showed him first meeting Ahsoka for the first time, and he had the episode 3 haircut. So it is canon breaking. Very similar to Rey in the Rise of the Resistance ride, where it's genuinely jarring. And then, oh God, the minor controversy of the Inquisitor overriding the Ahsoka novel, which is the first case of Disney overriding itself, like really concrete.
How is it? But like, if it's a novel, like I saw people commenting that he looked different, but like
because
I don't know what the source image was that they were comparing.
There's
it to.
because again, I never read the Ahsoka novel. Zenger did. I don't know what blah sister brother it is Inquisitor wise, but that Inquisitor is referenced by name in the book, and then in one of the comics we get to see it illustrated, and whatever the illustration is from the comic does not match whoever this character is. And I think E.K. Johnston, the author of the book's like, that's not what the character looks like. Like, based on what the conversations I've had with Lucasfilm about this specific Inquisitor, that's not what they look like. So it seems like
so it's, well, I don't know, like, why she would. Then again, she's like a bit of controversial figure. She was like I think publicly tweeting that they should cancel Eclipse after it got announced and stuff. So like, you know, she's
another Star Wars project that will never come out.
Well, that had an update. That had some updates recently though. Like, I don't know. I heard there was like some stories about new information about that recently. I don't know. I'm not so certain.
Another prediction I will make on the record: that game will never come out. Just calling that now. Like, go to GameStop, ask your $5 deposit back. There's better ventures. I don't know. There might be some Enron stock to invest in. It's a better, more fruitful future if you go down that path.
I mean, can they really cancel like 80% of Star Wars games that are announced?
What do you mean games? You should say all media. Like, it's coming to a point where, think about it, the last major Star Wars game, as in like got a genuine full court press marketing, was Battlefront 2 in 2017. And even that got muddled because EA was being EA during all of it. Like, think about it, the last major tentpole game was Battlefront 2. Like, yes, I love Fallen Order. It was not a tentpole game for the franchise. And think about it, that game is 5 years old now. It's been discontinued support for the last, 2.5 years. And there's nothing, again, game-wise, there is nothing on the horizon. And it's just, there's almost a level of just, oh God, it's their brand, Disney, so like they can do whatever they want with it. But like, there's a certain level, it just feels like there's like a fiduciary responsibility to like the culture. Like these are things that people have invested their time and energy in, that said they're keep it alive, as in just keeping it in the zeitgeist. And they just don't care. And I think D3 was the ultimate just, oh God, putting a bow on it. And just like, even forget about Star Wars, just as like a Disney nerd, like there was like, I was thinking about that. Like, D23 is one of those things as like a Disney nerd. It'd be fun to do. I'd like to do it at some point in my life. And I'm looking at this, like there hasn't been a D23 since 2019. And I'm looking at it and it's like, they didn't announce anything. Like nothing, I think 3 years of sitting on their hands. And they're in like, you have Epic Universe that is Universal's third park that's going to open in a couple years. And it's like, they didn't announce A, anything, and B, didn't even hint at anything on the horizon that would try to combat any of that. And it's like, this is a company, not even Lucasfilm, that just, I think resting on your laurels is not even a strong enough term. I honestly think this is a company that is so just bloated and arrogant that genuinely thinks it's infallible.
It's hard for me to think that way because like I still like strongly remember what the last like 15 years of Lucasfilm like with George Lucas was like. So it's like it's I don't know, it's like the problem is it is true that it sucks they're not announcing movies because they're like objectively better than these shows in every way. Like even the ones even though I don't like 75% of the Disney Star Wars movies, they're just like, these shows are just like by the numbers sort of ho-hum stuff, except for like, you know, I really give it up to like season 1 of The Mandalorian. 2 I liked like half of 2, but season 1 was pretty good. But like, you know,
at least. But even like if you look at the Mandalorian season 3 trailer, like the money's at least on the screen. Like you can, like if you were to put the Kenobi marketing materials next to the Mandalorian season 3, you can tell there's money being pumped into the Mandalorian. It feels like theater level and production wise. And you would have to assume that's Favreau just going to bat, being like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Like we're not going to half-ass this. Whereas Deborah Chow's just going to be like, please don't fire me.
I just can't understand Kenobi, and like that behind the scenes thing just made it even weirder because they're all just like, we love this so much. Kurosawa, George Lucas, the power of myth, like the hero with 1,000 faces. I'm like, have you guys watched your own show? Like, it's crazy.
But that's the thing, like, I was thinking about Kenobi a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, Kenobi had its moments. Like, I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to completely dispose of it. Like, I love the homeless war veteran 501st Clone Trooper. Like, that's a great moment. That is a, wow, like, the idea that, like, you have, again, you're taking the concept of, oh God, this fantastic space movie world, and you're bringing it home in the idea that we've all seen this, the guy sitting in the gutter with the sign that says hungry. Like we've seen that, and it really brings it home. And I'm like, okay, that is a clever moment. And then you have, again, I think I've talked about it a couple times, even though I wasn't part of the chapter part 6 episode of Kenobi discussion, but even the whole thing where Obi-Wan cuts part of his helmet off, and you have the whole back and forth about, you didn't kill me, you didn't kill Anakin, I did. And you have that, and like you have this really kind of eerie, like muffled voice by Vader / Hayden Christensen, and it was the purple glow of the red and blue lightsabers mixing. I'm like, that's neat. Like, that's what I want. And not saying that I want every moment to be like that, but there's substance very periodically. And that's the thing where it's like, I think it has its moments here and there. It's just, it's not sustained.
I really don't like that line where he's like, you didn't kill Anakin, I did. First of all, earlier in the series, Vader himself contradicted that comment by saying, I am what you made me. And I think that line is literally just in there because they're like, oh, why does Obi-Wan say it that way to Luke? It doesn't make any sense. Why is he lying to Luke? It's like, what motivation does an evil Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, have to absolve Obi-Wan of responsibility? I
think you're looking at it in the lens that it's like you're looking at your armchair quarterbacking it. Well, I'm not saying that's wrong. Maybe that was their intent. Who knows? Kurosawa, the Legend of Myth, whatever. The thing I find interesting about that is that I'm not taking it at its most literal. I just like, this is the idea that someone that's so consumed with just hatred, and he's so just demented. Like, he is demented by evil, and he's just like, he's consumed by it. It's the thing that Obi-Wan says in Jedi, he's more machine now than man. This is somebody that's been consumed by their hatred, and it's literally twisted his mind. And that's what I like. It because you look at Vader throughout the original trilogy, and for the most part, he's like just, oh God, he's a frustrated supervisor that just cannot handle.
And isn't it great?
Reckless abandon.
That's my favorite thing about it. You see Palpatine promote him to supervisor at the end of the Obi-Wan show, and that he's just the businessman for the next few years. Like, I don't know. He's just so unstable in that show, and it's just like.
But that's why I like, though. Like, that's the one thing. Again, I don't know if I like it, but it's something that's different, so I have nothing better. Again, it's the idea of at McDonald's, they put the McWrap on the menu after you've had quarter pounders for the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
Like, hey, it's something different. I'm not going to question it. And that's what I find interesting. Even the whole thing with, even though I think it was shot terribly, him walking down the hallway and he's just murdering people because he's just trying to get a rise out of Kenobi. I'm like, it's different. We've never seen.
Yeah,
it's clunky. No, it's visually clunky, but as a concept, I get it because it's meant to show just this isn't the administrator from Empire and Jedi. This is a guy that's just like, I've had this anger hard on for the last decade, and I'm finally able to do what I want. Like, think again, look at it psychologically. This is a guy that's probably been harping on this, who's literally living in a suit prison for the last decade. And the guy that's put him in this has finally come out of hiding. And this is his chance to sit there, just be like, I'm going to take all my pent up frustration for the last 10 years, and I'm just going to let it just rain down upon anything that gets too close to me. And like I said, I find that as a individual who loves Star Wars, something that is mentally stimulating. Not saying it's good or bad. Like, again, we've gotten to a point with Star Wars where there's no point in characterizing anything as objectively good or bad, because compared to previous media, I think all of it's going to fall short just because there's so much of it now. It's hard to compete with the best of the best. But again, it's something. Like, I still haven't gone back and rewatched any of Kenobi since it debuted. It's just kind of like, okay, like, it's kind of like Book of Boba Fett. It's like, will I go back and rewatch that? Yes. Will it mostly be because I want to watch Tamora Morrison do like a bantha? Like, I catch myself doing that a lot, just miming it. But again, it's like, okay, like, I think a lot of it too comes down to the fact, like, I wish this was all on like Blu-ray or like not DVD, but like physical media. There's something I find psychologically cheap about watching something by pushing a button solely on my TV. It should be stated, and Chris is going to hate me for this, but I bought bootleg copies of 4K 77 and 4K 83. And
well, those are, intended. I mean, like, I don't know, like, yeah, like that. I mean, I got those on. I got Blu-ray copies of that off eBay, but you got to get them quick before they get flagged.
I got mine off Etsy. That's how special I am. But no, but again,
so did you find an 80 though? Did you find an 80? Is that I don't even understand if 80 is a thing.
80 doesn't.
It sort of does.
Does it now? You're the one who told me it didn't exist. It's more machine now than man.
They released something, but I think it was like a bit of a hack job between a 16 mil version and the 35.
Well, I know where I got my copies off Etsy. It was all three films. And the big difference was you could get it with digital noise reduction and with no digital noise reduction. And the one that didn't have the digital noise reduction was considered the grindhouse version, which I think, like you said, it's like a 30 millimeter or 35 millimeter print, just completely just digitized. And then the one with digital noise reduction is a despecialized version. And I will say,
well, I don't think there's much of a difference, because someone who uses digital noise reduction on a regular basis, it's really just like the grain is just out of control on a like direct scan. I mean, but they're very much basically identical. It's just like, you know, like if you've ever used Photoshop, like noise reduction's like one of the first sliders in Adobe Raw, and it's just like if the source footage is like robust enough to deal with it, you're really just like smoothing out some of the noise. But I think they're identical cuts. Like there's nothing else different about them. It's just a post-production effect. Some of the spots.
I completely understand. And that was the two differences between them. And I went with the digital noise reduction just because I want these as cleaned up as possible. I will say that watching those, A New Hope seemed unnaturally bleached out. Like the image seemed bleached out. Like everything seemed a little too bright. Jedi looked phenomenal. Like there was details in Jedi that I had never noticed before. And I'm just like soaking it up. Like this looked like the 4K 83 looks better than the 2011 Blu-ray does. Like genuinely, like I would 100% do the Pepsi challenge for that and be like, this fan, like just clean up is better than like the state sponsored version from like 10 years ago.
Well, but is it better than the current 4K version though? That's the question, right?
That's a sin though. Like we're not going to count that because that's a travesty. That like the fact that we live in a world where Disney and this is the thing, Disney loves money, and Disney knows that if they were ever to release the original trilogy unaltered, that would, oh God, it would make them money. I'm not saying it would sit there, do anything, good Lord, like go from being in the red to the black in regards to anything, but they know that's a barn burner they're sitting on. And the fact that they still have done nothing and they're unusually quiet, considering this is a company that is so uncannily efficient at just stoking fan ire, is something that they have never commented on. And it's so strange that's one kind of stone they've deliberately left unturned.
I actually feel like we have passed as a culture the optimal profit window for releasing the original theatrical versions.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And the best way, I'm trying to think, how can I even argue with that? Even as a philosophical exercise, how do I argue with that? You are correct. You are correct, but I will say that if they were to ever market that, okay. May I take two steps back? You got me there, Chris. You got me there. That's a good one. That's a good argument. That's a very well played argument. Let's phrase it this way. In the last 2 weeks, it was just announced that Criterion, the boutique label that's done a little bit of everything for the last 25 years, has finally gotten access to the Disney library. Their first Disney, license in like 15 plus years is going to be a 4K cut of WALL-E. But what about the vault? I was promised that these things weren't coming back out of the vault, man. But this is good God, the vault. There's a fantastic YouTube video by Yesterworld that does a whole thing about like the Disney vault and just Disney's like relationship with home video for the last 35 years. Fantastic video. Go check it out. It's like almost like a half an hour long. This is the thing though, in that when Criterion announced this WALL-E 4K cut, or for a home video release, Disney Disney gave them access to what they wanted, but Disney has no direct involvement with this. As in like Disney licensed the film from the vault, no more, no less. And everyone's like, oh my God, like, what does this mean? And it's funny. The two things that everybody kept asking about, like in comment sections, was A, are we finally going to get the straight story, David Lynch's Disney film, on Blu-ray? That was the first comment. Everyone's like, we can finally complete the David Lynch filmography on the HD home video. And then the second one was, does this mean we're getting the unaltered Star Wars original trilogy? And so I don't know. Again, I think Disney knows there's money there, but they're going to do it in a way that they don't get their hands dirty. Like, and I keep saying Disney and Lucasfilm are synonymous now. I think anybody who tries to partition the two is just doing it to make themselves look good. They know I agree with you, is the optimal window for maximizing profit gone or past? Most likely, but they could very easily license this out, not have to do anything on their end. Don't have to lift a finger, literally just sign the back of a check. They don't have to worry about any of the fallout, and then just go forward. And that's how you do it. That's how I remember when Rob and I did Song of the South, like on Cinemoddities years ago. I'm like, Disney could very easily get these films out and use a third-party label, like boutique, like Criterion or whatever, as subterfuge and be like, no, we are not touching this. We license it out. We're donating 100% of any revenue to insert charity, organization, rights group here. But we're going to sit there and let this be there for people who want to see it. And they could do that. They could 100% do that and be safe, be both for home video archivists and special interest groups, be heroes for donating money and fundraising. Like, there's ways to do that. And there's going to come a point when they're just going to sit there and be like, this is, again, the same company that, good Lord, I just saw, and I don't know if this means anything to Chris, but for their Halloween event that's meant to be the antithesis to Halloween Horror Nights, it's Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Bash. Like, the tickets for that are something like $180 a piece. Like, it's more expensive to get into the after night event than it is to actually get into the parks. And that's the thing. This company is more money hungry than it's ever been. And trust me, folks, I've been following this company with a fine-tooth comb for almost 20 years now than it's ever been before. Like, if they found the revenue. Go ahead.
I was listening to a review of somebody who went to their little Halloween silly thing, and they're basically just saying that the kids can like trick or treat from like the costumed like mascots walking around, like 100.
Yes,
give me $120. Okay, so
but again, I don't know. But that's the thing. Disney's big thing right now is making money off not having to lift a finger. And what better way to do that is to start licensing out the catalog? Like, it's
not worth it for Song of the South. No, they're not going to do something. They're not going to do something genuinely for film preservation.
That I get. No, Song of the South was the most extreme example. But there's things like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, like stuff that is for the most part innocuous, but hasn't really gotten a fair shake in 40 years.
Right, but the thing is now, like I was saying about it being past the optimal profit window, like people under 30 don't actually know what scenes were like added in 1997 and then again in 2004 and then again in 2011. Like they can't parse it. It doesn't like sear into their brains when they watch each version like it does for me. So like I think it would almost like some subset of adults would just be confused and off-put by that release.
I don't think so. I will, again, this is anecdotal evidence, but my local my local Target, Walmart, Best Buy, all, 6 films of the original and prequel trilogies in their Disney era, like home video packaging with the really specific color hues. Those have been regularly stocked now for 2.5 years, and they, not that they sell out to the point where like there's nothing there, but they're always being replenished. So people are buying them. That's the thing. If they were to ever do this, I'm not saying it would be like, okay, like we're going to stock 100 copies at each Walmart in the country. I'm not saying it would be that level, but I think they know there's money there. And if they don't have to do anything and just be given a check, they're going to go for it eventually. It might be today, it might be tomorrow, it might be 20 years from now. But there will come a point, much like I said, how, again, this for long time listeners of the podcast, at one point my calling card was I called the Rey Kylo Ren back-to-back fight in The Last Jedi, like to the T. My new version of that is going to be calling that Rogue Squadron got canceled. Like that will be my calling card for the foreseeable future. At some point, we will get the unaltered original trilogy as an officially sanctioned release. And if I had to guess when it will come out, it will be within a year after George Lucas has died. Because they're going to go to Katie Lucas and like Jet Lucas and be like, how would you like a big check? And that, and whoever Irving Kershner and Richard Marquand's, is left in their estate.
Yeah,
it will happen. It will happen eventually.
I think if it's done after Lucas's death, like it will upset me. I don't know. It's just like,
why?
It's so gross. It's just like, by the way, Zach and I have bought these already, and like, I don't need a better version than 4K 77 and 4K 83. Like, I'm good with that for the rest of my life.
It's a cultural victory, Chris. Like I said, Lucas is the maker. We owe him for all of it. It's because of him that I am tens of thousands of dollars in debt, but he did commit a cultural crime. He did.
But the beautiful thing about the way like media technology has progressed is that like a fan with like $10,000 and like passion can be like, I'm just going to go buy a 35mm print and clean it up. And there's literally nothing any of you can do about it because all of this technology has become stuff you can have in your home. And it's literally like the amount of care that was put into restoring like 4K 77 and 4K 83, like they went through and like you're talking about digital noise reduction, right? That's the tip of the iceberg with these things. They went through and like anytime there was a scratch on the print or dust that got in the scan, they cleaned up all of that stuff. You're never going to get that kind of a treatment from Disney. They might co-opt the 4K 77 and 4K 83 prints somehow. They might do that, but it's not going to be better than that. I guarantee it.
I again, we'll never know for certain. I don't disagree with the idea that they would be lazy about this, but I could also see them farming it out to somebody else and letting somebody else take care of it. Like, and where they don't have to spend any money.
But is there literally anything legally stopping them from just saying those updated versions are ours now? Like 4K 77 and 4K 83?
Well, yes and no. Like, the fact that you can buy them off Etsy and eBay and they're not really policed, no. But at the same time too, Chris, like let's just say in 1985, you were given by a Lucasfilm employee an original print of pick whatever film you want, Star Wars, Empire, Jedi. And let's say today you said, hey, Zach, for the sake of argument, let's pretend I run a movie theater and say, hey, how about for a fundraising opportunity, not even for profit, we'll pick a charity, whether it be, oh God, what's something that's innocuous? An animal shelter.
They've done this.
Well, that's the thing. If you try to sit there, show the original trilogy unaltered, they shut that down. They won't let you. Lucasfilm will not.
They had their own event for A New Hope like a year or two ago.
But internally, they'll do whatever they want. They don't care. Again, the Ivory Tower. It's nice to live in the Ivory Tower. But if you and I wanted to do this,
I can't remember what it was, but I don't think it was. I think you could buy tickets to it if you were in LA, and it was unofficially sanctioned.
But that's what I mean, though, is that again, the Ivory Tower is deciding who and who cannot watch this officially, and that's not how any of this should work. The notion should be like it's like this past weekend, Rachel and I, at the local drive-in, they had Corpse Bride and they had the original Nightmare on Elm Street's double feature. Very strange double feature, but hey, go for it. And then like they gave us a little like, oh God, program sheet where like all their movies for the next month, because Hollywood's not releasing any movies for the next month. And like one of the double features was like, I don't even remember what the bottom half of the double feature was, but the first half was Slither, James Gunn's Slither, a movie that nobody knows what that is. That is by James Gunn standards, like, oh God, everyone's just like, what the hell is that? And the thing is that like, and I was trying to explain to Rachel why that movie was there is because clearly the studio is renting, quote unquote, some of these, and that probably is one of the cheapest options the drive-in could get, as and they probably got a higher ticket margin for that than they would for something a little more high profile, whatever that may be. And that's the thing. Like in theory, this drive-in should be able to go to Disney and say, hey, we want to do this. And Lucasfilm will shut it down. I don't think there's a high enough volume of ticket sales that Lucasfilm would permit for this to even be slightly economically feasible relative to, oh, we want to show the altered, or we want to show The Force Awakens, or we want to show The Empire Strikes Back 2012 cut, whatever the last incarnation of that was.
Well,
that's
like the one that was put on Disney Plus.
Yes,
but
whoever the Disney Plus cuts.
But that was well, like the Disney Plus, for lack of a better term, I think it was closer, really, like is more like the bit rate of the home video 4K version if you had a disc. But that was playing at a bunch of theaters like during the pandemic. Like,
well, yeah, Empire, what?
Yeah.
But that's the thing though. It's like when I went, this was for Father's Day 2019. I don't even know what you even call it. Local theater of mine that for the most part, it's a performing space, but they have a projector, digital projector. And so they did the original trilogy. And when I went because it was like, oh, like, I wonder if it's going to be like a 35 millimeter print. And during the like guy whose like job it was to announce all this, he's like, these are the versions that Disney provided us with. And it was just like, and it wasn't McClunky. He says like, these are the Blu-ray cuts. And like, obviously the audience moaned. And that's the thing. Like Disney is, again, Disney, Lucasfilm, again, synonymous terms. When I say it like that, is that they are keeping these behind it's like beyond a paywall. It's like gatekeeping. And it's like, these are like, it's the Indiana Jones thing of it belongs in a museum. Like if you're going to make these films available, make them available in all their forms. Like like I said, it's a cultural argument. They are the legal owners. They can do whatever they want. But I think there's something very disingenuous about being like Star Wars is for all, and then sitting there hiding, good Lord, 20 years of it behind just an ironclad gate.
I almost like, I don't know, like honestly, like so much of what's happened has been like such an embarrassment to like George Lucas's work that it's like, if he put that as part of his deal, like, check it out, I'm going to sell Star Wars to Disney, but you guys can never release those theatrical cuts no matter what, or this deal is off like in perpetuity for as long as this is legally possible. I don't know if they could do that in a way where it wouldn't be up to his estate after he died. I don't know. But like, if that's what he did, I don't care, because I have 4K 77 and 4K 83, and it wasn't that hard to procure if you really want it. It
belongs in a museum.
It'll be on the it'll be on the internet forever. Like now that those are out.
It's a philosophical argument first and foremost. Anyway, though, back to contemporary Star Wars. Chris, how excited are you for I don't know if these leaked. I don't know if leak's the right word, but I think it goes up for pre-order tomorrow, maybe sometime this week. Calrissian Endor figures. Are you excited to buy Calrissian Endor in an outfit that's just slightly different from his Rogue One outfit?
I've been like mildly tempted to get his like updated Black Series figure with the like face printing, because that's going on clearance now. His like Rogue One, his like
clearance all over again.
Yeah, his Rogue One. That's like his Rogue One version that came out like a couple years ago, probably by now. Where they redid all the face printing on all 6 of them. I don't know. Like I'll see the show, but it's like Cassian has the same problem that like in the 90s, like there were peg warmers that were like Han Solo in Hoth gear or like Lando Calrissian. It's like the generic dude as figures are like not that compelling. You know what I mean? Even Luke Skywalker in his Bespin gear is like, he's wearing like khakis. Like, yeah, he's just like a guy. Like, they're not super compelling figures. You get like one. If you got one Cassian Andor, you got them all. You know, it's like you got your Rogue One version. You're good.
I agree. That's where it's one of those things where, again, I don't like to think of myself as a cynic, even though I can be many times on a daily basis. But this was about a week or two ago. Like, Yak Face, some of the other collecting fan sites were like posting pictures of like early lead Calrissian Endor figures, not just him, but from the overall just show. And I'm like, these are new Star Wars toys. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, I will not buy these. I have no interest to pre-order them. There's no, again, new Star Wars toys was like a cornerstone of my just, oh God, I don't want to say livelihood, but just my entire interest is just as a hobby. And we've got to a point now because of just, whether it be supply chain issues, Lucasfilm's just not knowing how to manage any of this in a timely manner, and/or with Hasbro complicit in it, where I'm seeing new Star Wars toys for a new show, and I'm just like, pass. Like, not even like a hesitation, just being like, even the short, they're re-releasing for like the 5th time now, the Shore Trooper. I remember when that figure was first released, like for Rogue One, that was like a hard to find figure. And then I think they re-released it like a year or two ago for the archive line. And I bought a couple of them because it's a cool looking, like let me rephrase that. It's a novel design relative to some other incarnations of Stormtroopers. And it's just like it's the shrug. It's just like, I just don't care. And I don't think that's me. Like, again, like, obviously I bought Kenobi stuff. I bought Vader and Obi-Wan as the vintage collection and as the retro line because they were cool looking figures. And with this, I'm just like you said, like, there's only so much you can do with a generic guy wearing like a quasi Nazi uniform.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up, like, I do have a couple non-cynical good things to say about recent Star Wars toys because, like, but they're not, like, the Andor stuff, it's tough to say till the show comes out and we see what the actual, like, novel designs are in there. But you're absolutely right, especially, like, that Vader, the Kenobi Vader from the Vintage Collection, like, that actually might be the best 3.75-inch Vader figure, like, ever. Like, before that, I would have said, like, the, like, 5 POA one from the, like, those, remember they put out those multi-packs, like, when the 5 POA line died? Like, that Vader was pretty good, but, like, this one actually might be the best looking 3.75-inch Vader, which it's, like, I think I was listening to Galaxy of Toys podcast or something, and they said that since the first one, there has been like 120 different 3.75-inch Vaders, which is like nuts to me that it took that long to like get one where like the helmet doesn't look insane. but you know, like that new one, that looks awesome. I did get that recently. The retro collection one is kind of cool because it's like, it's so funny to think like from 78 until 85, they didn't update that Vader figure. Like, it was the same one from 78. They released on an Empire card, a Jedi card, and a Power of the Force card.
You can't fix perfection, Chris.
Well, you know, but he had like a hilarious plastic cape that like folded up like Dracula. And like, it just, you know, they got better at making figures over those 5 years. But Darth Vader, the primary antagonist, continued with his 1978 design. There's just so many funny things in there. Like, you know, R2-D2 just looks incredibly rudimentary, and they kept with that design until 85. There's just weird stuff like that. So, like, it's funny that there's, like, the first 5 years of Star Wars, there's one figure. They managed to fit in 120 after that since 1995. And then, it's debatable, but, like, that Obi-Wan version is, like, probably the best looking one. There's a Rogue One vintage collection from, like, a year ago, which looks way worse than the Obi-Wan version. Go figure. A year apart. I don't know. But the one other thing I've been enjoying recently is and like, I don't know, I at first thought I wasn't going to get into this, but like in Canada we're like behind on this stuff, but like the Jazzwares, like micro fleet stuff, like I kind of hate myself, but I love these, man. Like in Canada there's only the ATST, the regular TIE fighter, and a Saz Ventress's ship. Like, that's all you can get in Canada right now. I'm in Arizona this week, and like I was like, Darth Vader's TIE fighter, X-Wing, I almost bought the Millennium Falcon, but I was worried it would get damaged on my way home, so I didn't get it. haven't seen any of that stuff in Canada yet, and it's awesome. I don't know, Jazzwares is like doing cool stuff. I love their like Halo figures. Like this stuff is just kind of like Action Fleet, but like the TIE Fighter looks awesome. Like it's like really well detailed and proportional and all that. Of course, that line is not referencing any new media whatsoever. So maybe that is not a great.
Well, Asajj Ventress's ship is something relative to like Millennium Falcon and Darth Vader's TIE Fighter contemporary.
I
guess,
Imperial
Troop Transport, which is mostly a Mandalorian thing now.
Yeah, I guess it's the Mandalorian design for that, but I think that line's going to keep going, and you'll see stuff from Obi-Wan and Andor and all that. It's like I don't know. I see people talking about it. It's new. It's interesting. It's definitely more exciting than like you're not getting vehicles from Hasbro for a 3.75 inch. So it's designs you won't see them doing.
You know what though, Chris? Like again, like, I don't want this to become a toy thing, like, going down the toy rabbit hole again. But like even for the vintage collection, I'm not vintage, the retro collection, like Kenobi figures, like what, a half a dozen of them, and that like wouldn't it have been cool to make like a little play set in the vein of like the late 70s, early 80s of that like little what would you even call it? The quarry from the part 3 duel of Vader and Obi-Wan, and just have like the little things where you put their like the little peg hole and you swivel them back and forth, and you have like a little like this like I don't want to say flames, but like little like translucent red pieces for like the burning coals. And I'm like, they could very easily do that for $45-$50, and nerds would buy it because it's like it's the idea of like it's when they're that's the thing about Hasbro, and they talk about just being cynical and just dejected as part of the Star Wars fan base. I don't think anybody involved in making creative decisions or business decisions for Star Wars knows what the word fun means. I think if you look at, even if you have to start stripping it down for economical reasons, like by all means, like money makes the world turn. It's show business being the key word of that, the key suffix there in that word. And so, but I think if you start off with the foundation of let's have fun, and then start to go from there, I think you can't do any wrong. I think if that is your mentality, just let's start with, not saying fun as in like goofy, but like, let's make this enjoyable, and then let's take it, and then we can always build from there.
What a novel concept. You know, like let's make these toys enjoyable. I don't know. So I have to like give some credit to Chris B from galacticfigures.com. He's been like sharing some of my posts lately. Like, you know, if you look on the Galactic Figures feed, like 3 of the last 10 were some stuff I posted in his group. It's great. But
Humble
you know,
brag.
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, I'm posting the cool, compelling stuff over there. But that's a good fun group for like modern figure chat on Facebook, the Galactic Figures community. But he made this cool post where he was talking about the new Marvel Legends like Ghost Rider HasLab, and he's like, okay, so a year ago we got this Black Series Snowspeeder with a figure for $120, and now this Ghost Rider car, which is smaller and less detailed, is $350. What's going on with HasLab? Because like this is probably just something they were going to release anyways, and they just decided to make it a HasLab, just like the Reva Saber. It's like since the Razor Crest, like these HasLabs have not been intellectually stimulating in any way. They're literally just like boring things that they could have easily done as a retail product. I mean, like I think maybe you suggested it on a previous recording, but like the Reva Saber, it might have been Hasbro's way of getting out of making it at all. When Disney wanted them to, they could have just said, well, you know, let's do a HasLab and we'll actually see if there's any interest, because they already knew there wasn't. Maybe that's the case. But like the Ghost Rider thing, it's like, you know, this should be $100 at retail. Why is it a HasLab for $350?
Did you see that thing's like almost at completion? Like legit, I think didn't already pass its goal. Like I know within 3 hours of them announcing that, it was at like a halfway to like funding.
What I don't understand about these guys is like they could do it. The problem is they've messed up their price. They've inflated their HasLab prices too much. Like that Reva Saber being $500 really like messes things up, because like they could have done like the Razor Crest was $350. You can't say that's $350 a year ago or whatever it was, and the Reva Saber's $500. Like it's smaller, it's less detailed, it has less intricacy to it. It can't be $150 more than the Razor Crest. Like, that's nuts. So, like, you know, I tell you guys all the time.
As of recording this, the Ghost Rider has a target of 9,000 backers. With 41 days left to go, it's already at 4,600. So it's halfway. It's more than halfway there, and it will, barring a catastrophic drop off in interest, it will most likely be funded. And
the thing to take away from that is these HasLabs do not have to be connected to new media of any kind. You know, unlike Star Wars, Marvel did get some movie announcements at D23, and this HasLab has nothing to do with any of that. It's literally like, who's talking about Ghost Rider right now? Am I missing something? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so we had to have the Reva Saber, but for Marvel, it's Ghost Rider and it's funding. So, like, if they would have done something like, if they would have done like a Ghost, like the Rebels ship, the same size as the Vintage Collection Falcon, and charged $800 US for it, it would have funded. It's like, what do you like? It's not hard, guys.
But that's also the $1 million question of what's happening at modern day Hasbro. Like, we again, I can only imagine the stories that happened in that executive suite between Lucasfilm and them. Like, I can't even begin to just prognosticate on what that back and forth is like. Again, that's Disney doing something to Hasbro, because there's no explanation for any of the decisions. There really isn't. There's even toy wise, like, what is there on the horizon that's interesting for Star Wars right now? Like, that's another thing too. Like, is there anything toy wise being excited about, like, looking forward to? Like,
kind of. When that Jabba's throne room starts shipping, there's gonna be some cool photos.
Bib Fortuna.
Well, people are gonna. It's Jabba's palace for everyone.
I will gladly spend $100 for that card figure, because there's gonna be so many nerds that want nothing to do with that, and I will gladly spend $100 for that card figure.
If you'll spend $100 for that figure, I'll be ordering my playset this evening.
Can you even order it anymore? I thought didn't they threaten to discontinue, like, pre-orders for that like 6 months ago?
I don't think they did.
Go look it up. While we're talking, go look it up and see if you can actually pre-order it, because that is the only thing that's exciting to me, is Fat Bib Fortuna on a card. That's the only reason why I would want that, because it's just so goofy as a design. Okay, so getting back to D23, is Chris looks up Jabba's, or technically Bib Fortuna's, the throne room. Okay, announcement wise, the three major ones were Tales of the Jedi, Mandalorian Season 3 trailer, which from what I heard was just a recycled the Celebration trailer, and Andor. Like, that is there. I know obviously Ahsoka's coming down the line. They're really, like, they're tight-lipped about the Acolyte. The Acolyte's going to be the High Republic really getting its first taste of the mainstream. I still have never delved in the High Republic outside of just reading articles on the internet.
High Republic is worse Disney era, the Old Republic. So I wait to be impressed. Like, we'll find out what they do. Boba Fett's throne room from Hasbro is still available for pre-order.
Is it? They kept threatening that they were going to take that down.
You know, I'll even do you a favor, Zach. You fit for $50. You can have Fat Bib Fortuna. I'm gonna order mine.
How much is it? $250 still?
$229.
Okay. All right. I thought it was like $250. I still say, again, I every once in a while, like in one of these like toy shops, I will see like a Razor Crest like show up. They're like, "Oh, we just got a Razor Crest in like $500," and I'm just like tempted. Like, I regret not funding that so much. Like
you'll be able to find those forever. They sold 28,000, I think, something like that.
But for like Star Wars toy production, that isn't it's a nice amount, but it's not a crazy amount. Like,
well, it is when you think it is. But think about how you could buy 10 of any Power of the Force 2 figure carded right now easily.
Well, yeah, okay. Power of the Force 2 is very much its own beast. It's
okay, but 10, I'm saying, not 1.
I know. I know. But the idea, like, a limited toy run is considered 5,000 pieces. Like when, like, this is back from my NECA days. Like, if you're a toy manufacturer, you have to do a run of at least 5,000. Like, that's like the minimum, like, you have to put into circulation. So they did about 5.5 times that, which for Disney and Hasbro isn't a lot. Like, when you think about it, like, I get it. It's a very cumbersome piece of memorabilia, But I do think at one point that thing, not that they're going to be like extremely hard to find, but there will be a point where people are like, wow, like this person has this.
I see
Like,
a lot more of them than I see, like at toy shows and stuff. I see more Razor Crest than I do that Galaxy's Edge Falcon. That's for sure. But then again, that's the third release of that Falcon.
The Galaxy's Edge Falcon was also a point where like that came out mid-pandemic. Like that thing really did not get any time to breathe, in the sense of just like it was a weird time and just, oh God, humanity for that thing. Like, no, that's another one too that like the more I think about it, if I would have seen that actually on a shelf, I would have picked it up, but nobody's going to carry that in store anymore.
I got it in store at a Toys R Us for, check it out. This is so beautiful though. I got it for $100 off the week it came out, just because they had a 25% off Star Wars sale that week. It's like, you guys released the Millennium Falcon the same week you're doing a 25% sale, and you're going to include that $500 item in your 25% sale.
That's not too
okay.
That's not again, like even for all the for Force Friday back in 2015, like with all the new Star Wars merchandise, like everybody, Kmart, Target, Toys R Us, Walmart, all had sales. Like
but they had one or two at some Toys R Us stores. Like I don't think it was like a coordinated campaign. Like I don't think these guys even knew it was coming out, honestly.
But that works for anything though. Like in your case, that's luck of the draw. Like they're not going to sit there when they designed that promotion and they plugged it into the computer system. They did not put a exception around that SKU number.
Critical error that I benefited from.
Chris is like, that $100 made your braid, bro. I can't even finish the sentence.
Literally, it makes you that $100 like is the difference of how stupid was this purchase.
I don't think it made or broke Toys R Us that week, though, Chris. I don't think there was a manager going over the books that day.
What do you think the profit margins are on a $500 Millennium Falcon at Toys R Us? I don't know what they pay Hasbro for one of those. It's gotta be okay. It's gotta be. I would be shocked if it cost Toys R Us more than $100. Okay, I'm talking US, not Canadian funny money. But I would be shocked if the cost of that good for Toys R Us, the corporation, to buy that from Hasbro is more than like $170. I'd be shocked. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't think. I disagree. I think if they sold that thing at half off, they would still be in the black. Not again. Usually with most retail stores want to make a 30% markup on an item. Like, so like if they're able to get 30% on what they paid for it, then yeah, like that, they're happy with that number. So no, I think that extravagant cost is also the reason why this stuff goes on clearance so fast. In that, like, even when it's being marked off half, they're still well into the black. I think it takes a lot for these stores to be losing money on merchandise, unless they're giving it away for peanuts, like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like, people are probably tired of us talking about toys, but like it was sort of relevant.
So much toys, like, so little
time.
I want my Calrissian Endor figure toy ship from Calrissian Endor Season 1, the rise of
the red garbage can droid.
Yes, B2 Emo, is that his name? Like B Emo or something? Like they really...
gosh, I hope not. I didn't hear that.
Go look at his name. Go look up his name. It's like B. It's like, I'm not making this up. It's like the letter B. Number 2, E is an elephant, M is in Mary, like 0. It's like B2 Emo. Like that is what it's called. Like I keep seeing the card from the Droid Factory Disney thing. It's B2 Emo.
That's horrible.
I know. It's clunky as hell, but I kind of like it for that reason.
That's like those Droid Factory names when they do like the like Halloween and like Pride and Christmas droids, and it's like they're like R2 Boo. Get it? It's like, that's not canon. That's not canon.
Chris, are you booing me? I was saying boo earns.
R2 boo. This is the world we live in. And like, you know, those people will post, oh, there's a new holiday themed droid at the Droid Factory. And those cards still look like hell. Like whatever graphic designer has had like 10 years of Droid Factory cards based on their like terrible original design. Like, my God, every time people post, oh, here's a R5 unit that looks like candy corn. It's like, why do any of you want this? I don't understand. 3.75 collectors are like a different breed of man. Like, I don't understand like why any of that.
They're Jones and Chris. They're Jones and they need a fix.
I guess so. But you know, like hopefully there'll be one or two, because like all the characters from, and maybe this is like a Tony Gilroy thing, but like all the characters from Cassian Andor are just like regular humans. You know what I mean? Like there's no like aliens, there's no like droids that are like lead characters. K2SO is not in season 1. And even if he was, we already have like awesome figures of him that wouldn't look any different. So it's like I don't know what there is to like toyify from that series so far. Like, you know,
that's why the leaked toys look so boring, is because there isn't anything. Like there is, I know there was some promotional clip they posted the other day, and you see him flying a ship, and the ship like shoots red laser beams out the side. Is it like does like a barrel roll? That'd be a pretty cool toy. I would cringe to think that'd probably be like $150 toy, but like it looks cool.
Well, it would have to be a HasLab, because a 12 scale sedan sized car is a HasLab these days. So that would have to be.
Not Black Series. Okay, Chris, we're not even gonna go that far because they're not gonna make it as a toy. Like we know that is a
right. I know you're saying
beta complete will not happen.
You're saying not Black Series, but a 3.75-inch spaceship is the size of a Black Series or Marvel Legends car. Like it just
I know. Oh my God, Chris, don't make it even more depressing than it already is. Oh God. Okay, Chris. So out of the three of these, we didn't really talk about the Mandalorian season 3 trailer. Is there anything? I know we've talked about the idea of Mandalorian going back to Mandalore as being an interesting thing. Was there anything in that trailer that got you hyped or jonesing for it?
Well, like I like the idea that they're setting it. Like, here's the problem, right? The premise of that trailer appeals to me. I just know they're not going to stick the landing, because you can't make. They're not. The problem is, it's like as if they're making Ahsoka the antagonist. They're not going to turn Bo-Katan into a psychopath villain who needs to be defeated like Moff Gideon. First of all, let's remember, Moff Gideon never even died. So Moff Gideon got arrested by space cops, and we haven't heard from him since. And we've had 2 episodes of The Mandalorian since Moff Gideon's arrest. No mention of him. And they were in the Book of Boba Fett season 1. And, you know, it's like the whole Reva thing. It's like I can look at her, I can hear the premise of the show, and I know that she's going to be redeemed somehow, and this antagonist is not actually an antagonist. So like I don't like the idea of Bo-Katan as like the possible antagonist for Mandalorian season 3, because it's like, unfortunately, she's a beloved character by a bunch of people, and like I'm not one of them, but like she was in Clone Wars and everybody loves Katie Sackhoff, so like she can't possibly have an interesting character development that makes her an asshole. Is that a censorable word? I don't know, but like, you know what I mean? Like you can't like they're not going to make her interesting. They're not going to do it.
Anti-hero.
They're not going to they're not going to commit and make her interesting and terrible. So screw you guys. Stop messing with my emotions. It's going to be a weak ending, and she's not going to die, and she's already 70 years old and looks
like, you are so hung up on oh God, Bo-Katan and the Fountain of Youth. But again, isn't this going to be the whole thing that, like, again, weirdly enough, we talked about in the episode 2 years ago, Rangers of the New Republic, and this tying into Ahsoka? Like, isn't the end game for this the OG Thrawn trilogy? And Ezra being, what was it, Yarish Trober, like, being the mad wizard, like, pulling the strings? Isn't that the conclusion to all this? Is that you're going to get the quasi Katana fleet only for it to end with somehow Palpatine returned? Like,
I don't think they're not sophisticated enough to. They're not sophisticated enough to pull that off. Like, they already canceled Rangers of the New Republic. You know, Rogue One canceled, and they love Patty Jenkins. They love the idea of, oh man, my dad was a fighter pilot. Oh man, I'm Patty Jenkins. I directed Wonder Woman. Oh man, this is everything you could possibly want from a modern like Disney Star Wars film. Cold feet. Wonder Woman 2, not too exciting. You know, there's like,
we should also mention that ever since Thor: Love and Thunder, like the Taika Waititi Star Wars movie has also kind of gone out the window as well. And like there was no talk of that either.
And you know, and you said, you know, you're talking about like how they cancel stuff without thinking about it. You're talking about like, what was it, like 3 years ago that they said all these series might eventually tie into like a shared conclusion. You think they still think about that? You think Favreau and Filoni aren't just like, well, Mandalorian's going to take precedent, and if you want to make your like weird little sideshows that are like Obi-Wan level quality, like we're not really going to, like, that's not going to be dictating the narrative, and they're going to take the back seat, and as such, they're not going to be compelling narratives. I just,
well, that's the thing though. Rangers of the New Republic is not happening, but Ahsoka is, and they just kind of cast Ezra. I think you're gonna have probably a 1-2 punch between Ahsoka and Mandalorian. I don't know if there's gonna be a third show that ties into all of it, but I do think there's gonna be some level of a conclusion to this. There's really, I can't think of anything on the level for television of a major crossover like at that level where it culminates in a huge thingamabob.
But the thing is, they're the same show. Ahsoka, the Book of Boba Fett, and the Mandalorian are the same show.
I don't know. I Book of Boba Fett's such a weird anomaly in all this. Ahsoka has potential because if you make it the idea of like a mystery show of her trying to track down clues to find Ezra, and you sprinkle in enough Star Wars, just iconography. I think it can work. Mandalorian season 3, I'm like, no Star Wars fan should care about the saving of Mandalore. Mandalore in the Clone Wars was never an interesting planet. Like, the last time we got a major Mandalore story arc was from the Clone Wars, where Obi-Wan tries to rescue Duchess Satine, and it ends with him, and like Katie Sackhoff is telling him, like, the only way you're going to solve any of this is by invading the planet. Like, that was really the last major thing of Mandalore until Disney got involved, where obviously you got the finale to the Clone Wars, and that's the thing. The invasion of Mandalore with Darth Maul and all that. Yeah, like again, I think it's neat enough, but I don't think it's compelling as in this is going to be the entire arc of season 3 of a show.
It was probably better if you imagined the Ahsoka novel version of Clone Wars season 7. But
Clone Wars season 7, again, the conclusion to the Clone Wars with Darth Maul and all that, and you have Order 66 and Darth Maul just tearing apart a Venator. That's fun. That's pulpy. That is,
yeah, shame about the
stimulating on a pulpy level.
Shame about the first 8 episodes of season 7, but yeah, the last 4 were pretty good.
That's again, it goes back to the idea of is like, there should be a prerequisite for making any Star Wars anything. Should be emptying a box of action figures onto a coffee table and telling the producers, showrunners, writers, have fun. Just brainstorm out loud and just like do stuff like that. And I think a lot of it, in the words of oh God, how many Jedi Masters let go? It's that notion of just freeing your mind of the restrictions you're putting on it. It does wonders for creativity.
It's amazing that you don't like the idea of vision, Zach, after that comment.
No. That's forced creativity. That's dumping the action figures onto the table and holding a gun up to somebody's head and saying, "Be creative." That is completely different. That is forced creativity.
What I do find interesting is that they did make some. I think it was at D23. They made some announcement about season 2 of Visions that it's like it's not necessarily going to be anime. It's just going to be like random animated films like from all over the world that are like of different styles.
I think that was Celebration. They said they were going to do something like that. I could be wrong, but I don't remember hearing anything about Visions coming out of the last weekend.
Yeah, well, I mean, that I don't know. That appeals to me, but just, like I can handle watching animations. I know some people can't, but 2D animation is like not really a thing anymore that people are willing to experiment with, except for on an incredibly low budget niche basis, I guess. But I don't know. I'm excited for Andor, and I think it's because I'm one of those people who like was still paying attention to like some of the books and comics like in the late Lucas years, and like I felt like that stuff aged with me, and it knew that I'm like the audience member who is like an adult who is like not 7 years old, and I still like the universe of Star Wars, and I want content that intellectually appeals to me as an adult, because I actually don't care if kids watch Star Wars anymore. Like I really don't. I really don't care if they succeed in making something that can entertain children and me. I just want it to entertain me, and I don't care if 7-year-olds get captivated by it, because I don't want to be angry about how stupid it is when I watch it. I'm really at that point.
What is the thing they announced where it's like Muppet Babies, but it's for High Republic Star Wars characters? Should we talk about that real quick that they did announce?
Is that Skeleton Crew?
No. That's Jude Law. No, that's something. Oh God, that we know nothing about that, but that's coming as well at some point. That hasn't been canceled.
Is Droid still coming? Is that canceled?
Is Lando still coming?
Well, Donald Glover at least did a talk show appearance like probably 6 months ago at this point, where he strongly implied that it's still coming.
Well, yeah, the same way that Rian Johnson's trilogy is still happening. That the perpetual back burner Star Wars project, Rian Johnson, like every 8 months, like clockwork, you can set your watch by it. He's like, "Yup, it still hasn't been canceled."
What's funny to me is that Donald Glover will probably be older than Billy D. Williams was in Empire Strikes Back by the time that show happens.
We can only hope that's what will happen.
And Billy D. Williams was like 40 in Empire Strikes Back.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Oh God, what wasn't even? Oh God, what's that show? It's Muppet Babies, but for Star Wars. Wait, oh my God, they just announced it, and like kind of Star Wars Babies. Okay, let's see.
Is that actually what it's called?
It's Muppet Babies, but with Star Wars. Like that. Like that's what it looks like. And there's like a Yoda. Like, and it's all High Republic era.
Wow.
Okay, I should tell everybody at home, never type in Star Wars Babies into Google. Nothing good comes from that.
Well, it can't be any worse than that show where every character was a BB-8.
What? What show was that?
Wasn't there like an animated show where like even Kylo Ren was like a BB-8?
Oh, that. Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay, I know what you mean by that, but that was cute because like there was a bunch of stuff like Ben Solo and the blue butterflies.
Stuff like that doesn't bother me because like it's not canon. Like their Muppet Star Wars Babies show is not canon.
That was canon. The Ben Solo,
like as a BB-8 unit.
Yeah, that was canon.
Obviously,
it's like the Lego special, like the Lego specials. Like it's kind of not like it's kind of like you can read between the lines. That's probably the best way to describe it.
I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
No, okay. It's called Young Jedi Adventures. That's what it's called, and it's like Muppet Babies. Like one of the Jedi's like a little like imagine like Itchy from Itchy and Scratchy from The Simpsons, but like really cute. Like he's like a blue mouse with like big ears. Let's look at it this way. It doesn't look as atrocious as Star Wars Resistance did. As somebody who watched all of Resistance in real time, and it kind of has satisfying conclusion, Young Jedi Adventures looks cute enough. It passes the smell test. Let's put it that way.
Resistance, I was unable to watch, like physically, but it seemed more interesting than like Star Wars Babies or like a universe where they're all BB-8 units. Like I don't know what to tell you, man.
It's an aesthetic style.
Resistance was like kind of a show.
It was annoying at times, but it was a show. Young Jedi Adventures, like I said, that's one where I will put that on as a morbid curiosity, just because I want to see what it is. It's like okay, this is the weird thing about Star Wars fans. Obviously you remember the episode, the Clone Wars arc where Ahsoka takes all the Padawans to Ilum to build their lightsabers, and of course there's like the Wookiee like Padawan, and his name was like Grungy or Gunji. I know there's an episode where Rob's just screaming about that, and we all laughed back in like 2012 about the idea that like, oh, Anakin at some point like murdered a Wookiee like Padawan, and it was a hilarious idea. Fast forward 10 plus years later, and that character showing up in a sizzle reel for the Bad Batch season 2 gets like a woo moment from like a crowd of like 10,000 fans. Like, I don't know, like there's a certain level of like after the fact, like you kind of have to like, that's why when like Star Wars nerds get mad at like the goofy moments, I'm like, that's like where good moments are like seated. Like you need those little moments. So like they eventually like just like grow into like a beautiful tree.
The best thing about that Clone Wars episode on Ilum is that, and neither of us know the name of this Wookiee, but he used sound samples from Lumpy from the holiday special when he talked.
You just basically put the cherry on top for me. You took a great character and you made him even better. Chris, do you think the Criterion Collection is going to release the holiday special?
I think it's more likely that Disney Plus will get the holiday special than the theatrical versions of the original trilogy.
Do you really think we're at a point where watching Grandpa Wookiee look at digital pornography is more likely to happen than getting the original trilogy unaltered on home video? Is that where we are at this point?
I think there's more offensive things in like 30s to 60s Disney animated films that they have on Disney Plus than Grandpa Wookiee, frankly. And all they do to put those on there is put a little disclaimer up front.
Can you imagine being like the Disney like person whose job it is to clean up the holiday special? Can you imagine that being assigned to you? Like, we want you to clean up the Jefferson Starship like acrobatics thing. Like, can you imagine just being assigned that? It's being
somebody was assigned both Ewoks movies and the cartoons, by the way, and the cartoons, which like I don't know what the archival state of those were for Disney Plus, like before Disney Plus, because like the Droids and Ewoks cartoon, like I'm not sure, like, you know, those are actually HD on Disney Plus, so like they must have like rescanned something, and I don't know what the masters of those like would have looked like. I don't even know what format they would have been in. You know, you see the animation cells all the time and they're like 8x10, like, so like, you know, there's enough resolution there to like do something like 1080p at least. Somebody had to work on it though.
Chris, can you and I work, much like how you and I are going to write a definitive take on what happened during the production of The Rise of Skywalker, much like how there's 4K 77, 4K 83, can we do 4K 78? And it's the digital remaster of the holiday special.
Well, you know, on the subject of when I was saying like stop crying and just buy 4K 77, there's some guy who was using like AI to like make a 4K holiday special, and like it actually looked pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie, like it looked pretty crisp.
Oh man. Like, Is there any way to make the holiday special even better than its grainy? Ported over 20 times each version that's currently accessible on YouTube.
Like, I think I posted it, like he made a trailer for it, and I think I posted it in the Knights of Vader Facebook group, but he was just like, I have pieced together the best quality version of the holiday special, and then AI up-resed it to 4K, and he put a trailer out, and I think I posted it in the Knights of Vader Facebook group, but I don't think he's done the whole thing yet.
True perfection can never be completed, Chris. Let's just put it that way.
You know, it's going to take him years, and then he'll have to reflect on the fact that he spent years on that.
And right before he completes that final frame, he takes his life knowing that perfection can never truly exist, and man is not worthy.
Once I release this, what then have I got to live for?
Oh my God. Okay, so this one final question, because obviously we're on the eve of Calrissian Endor. What's going to be the weenie, aka the carrot on the stick, for Andor season 1 ending? Like, we haven't even discussed this. Like obviously we're going to do an episode on the first 3 episodes because they're all debuting in 4.5 hours. But what's the lead in for keeping people hooked on this show? Is it going to be like the Bad Batch where we get like a very, very subtle hint to legend stuff? Like, what was it? Mount Tarvis? Is that what it was called at the ending of the Bad Batch, where we see Not Taun We go there and it's like, we have great things in store for you. Like, is that what it's going to be? Like, it's going to be a very subtle form of just, I don't want to say like cameo, fan service. Like there's got to be something there, because I keep hearing in all the reviews that I've watched and listened about Calrissian Endor episode 3 is that something at the end of it is like, wow, like we've always wanted this, but we never thought it was going to happen. So even though he says there's gonna be no fan service, as much as Tony Gilroy's like, when I joined like Rogue One to clean it all up, I hate Star Wars, and yet Rogue One's the most Star Wars film that strokes the fans.
I love that man so much, just for every one of his quotes. When I see he say, like, there's that article going around, Andor is the first Star Wars show for adults, and I see all the little dorks putting sad faces on it, being like, you don't understand, Star Wars is for children. I just laugh, and I'm like, oh my God, I might actually like this one. Amazing. I think, you know, as far as fan service, I think it's going to do like a live action more tasteful version of some of the stuff you got with the Bad Batch, because you know, like there's been some clone troopers in the trailer. I think you're gonna get another take on like not Order 66, but like the changing of the guard as far as like the Republic to the Galactic Empire, like, and sort of what that looked like on the core worlds where there's actually civilization, and like how that was sort of presented. I'm predicting some. I think Ian McDermott maybe during his Deborah Chow session recorded some hologram messages, maybe that he's going to be on the TVs out there in Coruscant or something. I think you might get a taste of that. I saw a behind the scenes photo of like 10 clone troopers, and like clone troopers and physical costumes on actors just looks wrong to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's not meant to be, you know what I mean? Like you shouldn't have
they're digital renderings.
Yeah. It's just like, what? You got a bunch of dudes in clone trooper costumes that like, what is this? The 501st celebration? Like, this does not look right to me. Like it's just off-putting in some way to have practical clones. George Lucas wouldn't like it. But you know, and like, can they just? I guess they better not take their helmets off like they do 24/7 in the Clone Wars, unless you spent a lot of money on a DH Tamir Morrison, which I don't think they did. So that'll be interesting. I mean, he's at least gonna have a big voice role in the show if they're doing that. Like, that could be cool. I think you're gonna see what it was like when the Republic changed over to the Empire from a variety of different perspectives, and I think that's probably as close as it will get to fan service.
I'm just happy to see the Galactic Senate.
I you know how, like, I don't think Palpatine's going to show up in the Galactic Senate, but I hope he does. That'd be amazing.
Do we see Mas Amedda?
I don't know if he meant to, like, I guess he's still around as far as the Disney canon.
He doesn't, he's still alive. He's the one who surrenders to the New Republic in the Aftermath trilogy. He's alive and he's in charge. He's basically, once Palpatine's dead, the one they go after.
I think the odds are good then. What was that, like, what, Celius Carson or something? That'd be great if they got the actual guy back.
The actual Order!
They would, right? Like, he would look good enough with all that hardware on.
You get to see the ET in the Senate chambers.
Well, you know, they only let the human planets in the Senate in the Empire years.
Do we get to see the George Lucas senator? What's his name? The purple outfit McBlueface?
Baron Papanoida. And no.
Exact. Oh my God. How can you not have him as a senator in there?
Because I mean, like, they would probably want to, but I don't think Lucas would do it.
Yeah, what else does he have to do? Count his money?
Hate on the direction of the Star Wars films.
He's beyond that now. You think about that was 7 years. Like, okay, if you ever just want to, as a Star Wars fan, like, have another moment beyond just like, oh wow, the Phantom Menace was almost 25 years ago.
When was the
Force
Charlie
Awakens
Rose?
yeah.
When was the Charlie Rose interview? That's the real.
That's the thing. That was 7 years ago. Was the Charlie Rose White Slavers interview?
Like, you can't take that back, though. Can you? Like,
he doesn't care. He doesn't care. That's the best thing about Lucas, is that none of this matters to him. Like, the last time he really talked about Star Wars on the record was the Jimmy C show that was like on AMC, where he's just like telling, like, I see this a lot, like, much like how Chris sees the Stupid Nerds talk about like how Star Wars is made for children. Like, you'll see like people will take out of context the clip of Lucas talking to Jimmy C, and it's like, Star Wars has always been political. And then like they'll like a caption of like a Kaminoan, like, Lucas and Filoni named this character Halliburton based on Halliburton and Dick Cheney. And it's like, these are completely unrelated ideas. One of them was a character name that Lucas probably had no idea what they were calling it, and some co-writer thought it was cute. And B, like, yes, Star Wars was political. He named stormtroopers after literal factions of evil, just Nazi infantry. Like,
well, I kind of believe him. I kind of believe him about some of the episode 1 names. Like, there's not too many people named Newt out there. It's pretty exotic.
Nemoidian.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Are we really gonna give again? Like,
if he says that's why he named him Newt, I'm prepared to believe it.
Strong non-Newt Gingrich fan out there.
Well, I believe that Lucas was not a Newt Gingrich fan. I believe it. I don't know.
But
I don't have a hard time believing that.
That's so token, just like passive aggressiveness, though. Like, do you actually take that at face value, or do you sit there?
Oh, you mean like implying that like that is actually relevant to the story beyond just the name of a Trade Federation guy? No, I don't think it was.
But that's the thing. Like, it's the same person. That's like Watto isn't like meant to be like an Arabian like bizarre dealer. He's Italian. It's like, are we really going to believe that? Like, he's the same.
But I mean, why? Like the Twi'leks are allowed to be French. Like, I don't understand that either. But what are you gonna do?
But a lot of this just feels like it's the revisionist thing. Like, this is the same. This is always my favorite example of Lucas having no idea what any of this means, other than just he did what felt right in the moment. This is the same guy, and to bring this full circle before we conclude this discussion, that, think about it, original cut of Empire, it's Luke and Vader. Luke has his hand cut off. He's clinging to the side of the railing, and he's like, and Vader's like, join me, and together you and I will rule the galaxy as father and son. And Luke just lets go, falls down the endless chasm. Then, what was it, 97, he changes it to Luke going, as he falls down like the bottomless chasm. Then 2004, he like changes it again and takes the sound out. This is a guy that just makes it up as he goes along. And you have to appreciate that when it comes to $1 billion IP. That he's just like, none of this matters. If in the moment it makes sense to me, I'm going to do it.
All right. So there was a semi-recent update to the Luke falling down the chasm scream, where Matt Wood, who's still doing sound over at Skywalker Sound in Lucasfilm, he was asked about this. I think it might have just been on Twitter, and he's like, so like, what's the deal with like you guys put the Emperor's scream on Luke while he fell down the Bespin chasm? And that's literally what it is. It's literally Palpatine's scream from Return of the Jedi on Luke for some reason while he falls down the chasm. And I think there was some comment from Lucas about like, I don't remember asking for that, and that's why it was gone again on the Blu-ray. It's like he's not, he ain't going over everything with a fine-tooth comb. Like, he didn't think strongly about it either way.
But how hard is it to watch a final cut of this? Like, think about it. You're George Lucas. You're re-releasing your Star Wars films every 5 to 7 years. How hard is it to watch them? Like, how hard is it to watch these? Like, if you feel that passionate that like you had to redo all of this numerous times because it wasn't done right, because it wasn't your original vision, how hard is it then to watch?
He did ask for it. He doesn't remember. His current comment was, "I don't remember asking for it." He definitely did at the time, or it wouldn't be in there. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just do that. You don't just put the Emperor's scream over Luke as he just felt like not commenting on it and saying that he didn't remember asking for it. And rather than trying to rationalize a thought that he had like 10 years earlier, he just said, I don't remember asking for that. We'll get rid of it this time.
Beautiful. Again.
Yeah.
For better or worse, it was great having a madman in charge of $1 billion IP. Like there's something so beautiful about the idea of just a guy being like what color is Yoda's blood? I don't know. Green? like there's something so beautiful about that.
What are our options? Yeah. But also, like, you'll never get it again. Like, also, like, Yaddle, like, Lucas didn't want to talk about Yaddle. That's the famous Filoni quote. He was, like, asking him about Yaddle, and Lucas was just like, we're not talking about Yaddle ever again. And now Lucas is gone, and they're putting Yaddle in a show. It's like, no, you guys are messing up. You got a baby Yoda, you got Yaddle in a show. You guys aren't supposed to be messing with those characters. Lucas is just, like, he's checked out, but I wish he would be angry about this. Because, like, like, Yaddle was a mistake, and Lucas realized it. And now they're like, sorry, you made her, and we have to like literally mine everything you ever did. So now Yaddle is reminds
much like you referenced the Yaddle quote about how Lucas didn't want to talk about her. I still like the one, like I'll see this quote once every few years about Mara Jade, where Lucas is just like, and every single time I read anything from Lucas, I always hear the voice in my head. It's like, they cast a cosmopolitan like cover model actress for Mara Jade, and it was completely against everything that Star Wars stood for. And I'm just like the idea that like that's what he thinks of when he sees Mara Jade. He's like, cosmopolitan cover girl from like a magazine. That's what Mara Jade is to him.
well, Lucas has like a, there was what was her name from episode 2 who like she did Playboy and then Lucas like cut her out of the movie. There was something like that I forget the name of the model, but like there was this lady who was in episode 2 got cut out of the movie because she did Playboy and then gave an interview about being in Star Wars. I think that's how it went down, and then he cut her out of the movie. So like that it reminds me of that a little bit, and then like. There's this clip that I've seen on YouTube of like Lucas and Seth Green. It must be behind the scenes for like one of the Family Guy episodes. I don't know. Or maybe Robot Chicken. But like, it's like this stage scene at the ranch and like they're talking about a story idea. And like this guy's like, what if Mara Jade does this? And then Lucas, like, it's a stage scene, but like Lucas flips out. He's like, I'm not the creator of Mara Jade and you're going to get the hell out of this office right now. And he like chases the guy out and starts slapping him. Like, that's fantastic. Like that, that should be shown on loop at Celebration. But
the best part of that sequence is that Lucas has like a boardroom and like it has like a pocket door with a remote control. Cause like you'll see him actually push a button on the door, like on the wall, and the door start to close. Like that's like the small sort of details that I just love. Where like it's clearly a real space. Like it's not like, again, it's not like this thing you mentioned with Deborah Chow and like The Void where like clearly it's being staged and she looks very pensive walking across the set. Like you can tell this is legit like a conference room and they decided to film a bit.
Dude, that conference room, you would see it in like the episode 1 behind the scenes. Like this was like if you were paying attention to like Lucasfilm during the prequel era, like you knew this conference room, like you'd seen it before. It's I don't know, it's cool. It's just like it's just an era of hilarity and transparency that will never come back, and like the ability to like sort of have a sense of humor about certain things. But yeah, don't watch the Kenobi behind the scenes. Do watch the 3-episode premiere of Andor. I'm excited for it. Tony Gilroy is the dude. Rogue One is awesome, not because of the Vader hallway scene. It's awesome because there's actually decent characters who you actually care about, and they have decent interactions that are actually interesting. And there's not people who do preposterous things like lift up 10,000 rocks behind them just because at this point in the story they should do that, even though it doesn't make any sense, which Rey and Obi-Wan apparently do on a whim now. They just lift up the world and throw it at somebody whenever the story calls for it. Nothing like that happens in Rogue One, and it's a good movie, and it's not for dumb reasons like the fans tend to glom onto. And I'm excited for Andor. The trailers look awesome. It looks like it has scope. It looks like it actually deals with some prequel style politics. Will they be able to resist like well, I don't even want to say it. I don't want to say it. I just hope I hope it makes sense for the time period the Star Wars galaxy is in when the show is set, and I don't start seeing highly politically flavored references to current goings on in the real world. I don't think I will, because Tony Gilroy's involved and he doesn't strike me as that type. I'm excited for it.
I am passively optimistic. Alrighty, Chris, with that being said, so concludes this episode of Knights of Vader, a Star Wars Facebook group, a Star Wars podcast. Check out the Facebook group. Chances are you will see so many memes and just random discussions and Chris posting stuff from behind the scenes Facebook groups he's a part of. When you are not in the Facebook group, check us out on Instagram at KOV Podcast. If you like what you hear, please rate, review, subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify. Please, if you would be so kind, give us a 5-star review on Spotify. Those reviews ratings make a world of difference. For questions, comments, concerns, or snide remarks, you can hear me on the Cinemoddities podcast, where for the last month, Rob and I have been delving into Monstober. We've talked about Nope. We've talked about Killer Clowns from Outer Space. We've talked about... what else did we talk about so far? The Twilight Zone movie, where Chris featured himself. The true double jeopardy of John Landis was tested. It was genuinely tested. So, Chris, when you are not trying John Landis again, where can people find you?
You can find me at the Chris Porteous on Instagram. And like Zach said earlier, if you want to see cool action figure related Star Wars news articles that Zack forwards me before they go viral on Galactic Figure News, you could follow at KOV Podcast on Instagram, where the real pulse of the Star Wars collecting community. Me and Zack are the taste makers who don't get the credit, but we put this stuff out there, and then everyone else sort of gloms onto it in the community, and like we're just integrally involved. But we need some more of that credit. You got to go over to that Instagram page and follow us. And
yeah, the guy in Albany got arrested for swapping out McFarlane DC figures. It was great. He was a cop.
and if you like, like I shared this story Zach sent me, and like a lot the comment section on the Instagram and the Facebook group for Galactic figures for that story are just wild, ranging from I will defend this guy, like, oh my god, Hasbro's terrible, like he just luck of the draw, he's not a bad dude, to like, I'm glad this man's life has been ruined for committing this crime. Like the range of hot takes is amazing. And and if but our Facebook group's still pretty good too. You'd see some of this stuff early if you went over there. If you've been listening for ages, check out the Knights of Vader Facebook group. It's fun. You can like put stupid stuff in there and we'll react to it. Who could argue with that? It's great.
Exactly. The truest high mark of equality. Alrighty, Chris. Good night, but not goodbye. And as always, may the force be with you.